What's crack, and it's your boy Broshmo, just in case you did not know so, and happy Thanksgiving. I hope you stuff your gullets and you remain safe on your turkey bowl endeavors. I got a turkey bowl tomorrow morning, and I'm just trying to stay healthy because I'm not trying to walk around work limping and whatnot. But this is the new format of Stardom Cinema. We're going to go through every game, and I'm going to include quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends, tell you who you should sit, who you should start. This is a very important week. This is, for many of us, the week leading into our playoffs. So, for some of us, this is make or break. I know it is for me. So, before we dive in, I want to give a special thanks out to Daniel McGreevy. I hope I said your name right. Just saying, that comment touched my heart. It's much appreciated. Much obliged. I am on Twitch like 3 days a week. So if you want to stop by, say hi, talk a little football, I'll be gaming there. So check that out. But let's go into it. Let's talk about these Thanksgiving Day games because there's a lot of interesting names to talk about. We're going to start with Chicago versus Detroit. And feel free, just click to whatever matchup you are going through because, yeah, we got a lot to talk about. Anyway, let's talk quarterback first. Trubisky, Driscoll. For me, Driscoll, Jeff, I'm sorry, boy. You're a sit this week. The Bears, they're 6 against opposing quarterbacks. There's just better options. So while editing this, I saw that Jeff Driscoll, homie's benched. So, yeah, dude, honestly, I think that makes Bro Scarborough a start. They're going to rely a lot more on the run game, and dude, it's hard to start Kenny Galladay or Marvin Jones. So obviously David Blow, I think that's how you say it. He's a sit, and I don't know if I would risk Galladay or Jones. So Godspeed. Speaking of a better option, not that much of a better option, Mitch Trubisky. He's a low-end start for me. It's a Detroit. They've been giving up a lot of points to the quarterback, so it leaves me a little optimistic about how he'll perform this week. But, hey, if you're in a tight bind, you need a stream of quarterback, I would try to look elsewhere. But if you can't, then Godspeed with Trubisky. At the running back position, we got David Montgomery, man. He's facing a great matchup. Detroit, they're 31st against opposing running backs. He hasn't had less than 15 touches since week 7. He's still a flex start for me, barely, just because it's not like he's producing a lot. He's kind of touchdown dependent. That's why he goes in the flex, but he's seeing the opportunity, and he's got a great matchup. Tariq Cohen, you can sit him. He's basically reception dependent. He's really just used in the pass game now, and it's not like he's going to be going off. And to Detroit, we got Bo Scarborough. Oh man, I got him sitting. He's seeing all the carries, but that's about all I like for Scarborough. And then JD McKissick, he's a sit. He's just kind of dudded out. At receiver, Allen Robinson, man. This poor guy's been not blessed with quarterback play. He has been on the receiving end of some terrible quarterback play. And unfortunately, that's the case this year, but he's been a quality starter. He's been a quality wide receiver too, so I think he's a good start here. And then Miller, Anthony Miller has some viability this week as well because there's no Taylor Gabriel. He's in concussion protocol. And Miller, he's seen 20 targets in the last 2 games, so that leaves me to be optimistic. But he would be a flex start. And then we got Kenny Galladay. We got Marvin Jones Jr. Again, it's a tough matchup. The Bears are second against opposing receivers, but I think these guys you have to start them. This is a poor man's Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. One of these guys are gonna go off for a little bit, maybe wide receiver 2 stuff, but you have to start them just because of that chance. Amendola is a sit for me though. High volume, low quality targets. And at the tight end position, there's nothing to like. We got Burden on IR and Bronnecker. He's touchdown dependent. I don't like it. And then Hawkinson, I think he's probably gonna miss this week with the shoulder. It's a short week, being the Thursday game. So yeah, I don't like it. And then Logan Thomas, he's touchdown dependent. That's all I gotta say about that matchup. Let's move to Buffalo versus Dallas. I got both I got both Josh Allen and Dak Prescott as starts. Dak's kind of a low-end start. I would look for better options, but it's still Dak. He still can produce. Again, though, I would look for better options. And then Josh Allen's got the rushing upside. He's been money this whole year for the most part. Tough defense, but I think he could get by. I think you can get by with Josh Allen at running back. You got Singletary, man. He's a fine flex option. He's a big play threat. He's been producing very well. And Dallas's run defense is kind of middle of the road. And then Gore, he's got no big play threat bone in him. I'd sit Gore, Elliott. Zeke's always a must start. So let's move on to the receivers. John Brown, man, he's a flex start. He's got big play potential. Granted, he saw the lowest targets of the season last week, but they didn't really need to do much to win that game. So I still like him in this game. He's seen a lot of 10+ target games. And then Beasley, I think, is a flex start as well, because I think he might see a lot of work because that is a tough Dallas secondary. So we might be seeing a lot of underneath. And then Cooper and Michael Gallup. These guys are maybe flex options. This is a tough defense. I don't feel good. You got to start Cooper. I don't feel good about starting Cooper, but you got to. I know he put up the goose egg, but it's Amari Cooper. So just start and pray. And then Cobb, I feel like this is a week to sit Cobb. Buffalo, they're third against opposing wide receivers. It's just not a very advantageous matchup. Butchered that word, but you know what I'm saying. And then at tight end, you got a lot of names and a lot of sits. Dawson Knox, he's not seeing a lot of volume there. Tyler Kroft is cutting into it. Too few opportunities. I don't like either of those guys. And it's kind of the same case with Blake Jarwin and Jason Witten. It's a tough defense, but they see few opportunities. There's not a lot of high upside to either of those guys. They're both sits. And for the last Thanksgiving Day game, they gave us, oh man, a rematch of a upset. We got New Orleans versus Atlanta. I don't know if Atlanta will repeat that surprise performance they put on against the Saints earlier, but I think Breeze, he is a start. I know he didn't do great in that matchup against the Falcons, but they're still the 26th worst defense against opposing quarterbacks. There's still a lot to like about Breeze. I think this might be a good rebound game, a good vengeance game. As for Ryan, I think Ryan's a sit. He hasn't scored over 20 points since return from the injury. I don't like him in this matchup. And then at running back, Alvin Kamara is always a start. As for Latavius Murray, I'm kind of up and down. He's either a flex or he's a sit. You're facing a middle-of-the-road defense there as far as the run in Atlanta. And he only saw 7 carries last game, and it's really a touchdown saved his last outing. So if you really want to, you can flex him. I would caution against not playing him. Devontae Freeman, I don't know if he plays this week. If he does, he's a flex start at best. Tough defense against the run. The Saints are 4th against opposing running backs. He only really has the pass catching upside, but that's if he's healthy. And then we got Brian Hill, and then we got Olsen. These guys are sits. Even if Freeman is out, I don't like their upside. At receiver, it's freaking Michael Thomas, man. He's the highest scoring receiver in fantasy football. Yeah, he's a start. I think Teddy Ginn might be worth a start here. Dallas 30th against opposing receivers. I expect a big rebound, like I said, a big rebound game for the Saints after their last matchup with Atlanta. As for Jones, Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley, I think they're both starts. Ridley has that big play potential. He's only a flex for me, and you almost got to start Julio. As for Russell Gage, I think this is a sit. It's a decent matchup. The Saints are 21st against opposing receivers, but that defense has kind of locked it down. I wouldn't say recently, but they've been much better since the start of the year. And Chauncey stinking Gardner-Johnson has been solid there in at the slot. That's where Russell Gage is getting a lot of his production in the slot. Now, he's been solid. He's had a few up and down weeks, but the thing is he's been heavy on penalties recently. That limits Gage because guess what? You don't get fantasy points if you get penalized. Or if you get penalized on, I guess. Yeah, so I don't like him in this matchup. As for the tight ends, I love Jared Cook in this matchup. 13th That's what the Falcons are against opposing tight ends. But in his last 3 games with Breeze, he has 14 receptions, 206 yards, 2 touchdowns. I like it. As for Graham, the guy filling in for Austin Hooper, I don't like him. He's only seen 4 targets in 2 weeks. He's a sit. And on to Sunday. Let's start with my Miami Dolphins. Fins up, baby. Fins up against the Eagles. It might be a slaughter. It might not be. Who knows? But I got Wentz as a low-end start here just because of the matchup. The Eagles are the Dolphins are 27th against opposing quarterbacks, but Carson Wentz is a middling fantasy quarterback. He's not a great option. He's kind of a QB 16, you know, so I don't like that. As far as Fitzpatrick, he's a low-end start just because he'll be throwing a plenty. He'll be throwing that ball a ton because I feel like they're going to be behind. So he's a low-end start for me. As far as the running back position, you got Jordan Howard or Dewey. He didn't fully practice today because of the shoulder, so I think it's too risky. And even in the great matchup, I don't know if he'll play. Just keep up to date with that. If he does, he is a start. But I love. That was supposed to be a heart. Can't trace. But I love Miles Sanders in this matchup. I think he should be a good start because the Dolphins are 30th against opposing running backs. They're just giving away the points. And then Kalen Ballage, it's not a sexy start. And guess what? It's not a start at all. He's sitting. It's a tough matchup. The Eagles are really good on the run defense end. So, yeah, I'd look elsewhere than Kalen Ballage at receiver. Alshon Jeffrey be the only receiver I'm willing to go with for the Eagles, and we don't know if he'll be healthy, so keep up with that. As far as the Dolphins, Devontae Parker's the only guy I would go with for the Dolphins. The Eagles, they're 24th against opposing wide receivers. They have looked a little better the past few weeks, but here's what seals it for me. Parker, he has seen 10 or more targets in 4 of the last 6 games. This is a man getting a great deal of opportunity. I like it. He's been consistent for your fantasy team. If you own him, start him. And at tight end, I like 3 tight ends in this matchup. Zach Ertz is a constant start. He's basically a wide receiver 1, and then he's getting that type of volume. And then I think Dallas Goedert is a good start. He's seeing tight end 1 volume. He had 7 receptions, 9 targets last game. So I like him in this matchup. Dolphins are 17th against opposing tight ends. And Gesicki, I have him as a start. Tough matchup. The Eagles are 6th against opposing tight ends, but he has seen 6 or more targets in 4 straight games. And at the tight end position, you got to take what you can get. Jets versus Bengals. Let's talk about the returning. Not really triumphant, but you know, he's returning. The returning Andy Dalton. If you have a tough quarterback matchup like a Josh Allen or a Dak Prescott, I say go start Dalton if there's no better options. Because this man was averaging over 40 pass attempts while he was a starter. I think they'll probably be behind in this game. I don't mind starting Andy Dalton this week if I have to. It's not, like I said, it's not a sexy start, but if you really are in a tight spot, if you're stuck between a jet and a hard place, see what I did there? Go for the start. But Sam Darnold, I don't necessarily like how Sam Darnold's played, but he's been putting up points against bad defenses that aren't the Miami Dolphins, so it's a good start this week from the matchup basis. The Bengals are 29th against opposing quarterbacks. As far as running backs, we got Le'Veon Bell. He's a start. Only 1 game with fewer than 15 touches. He's going to get the opportunities. I like it. Joe Mixon, unfortunately, you can't sit him. It's Joe Mixon, but I think he goes back to running back 2, borderline flex option with Dalton back. As we've seen, they kind of shied away from Joe Mixon when Dalton was the quarterback, so I'm afraid that might happen again. At receiver for the Jets, Jamison Crowder. I know he had a dud of a week last week. Only, 2 receptions, 18 yards. I still like him. He's a flex start. I'm not going to buy into Robbie Anderson after 1 game. And yes, it's only been 1 game because the week before that, he had 1 reception for a touchdown. It was the only reason he scored points of any sort. So I'm not going to buy into it. Crowder's been consistent for the most part. And then Tyler Boyd, I think, is a start. The Jets are 27th against opposing receivers, and I see him getting a big push with the Dalton back in the lineup. We saw Boyd. I mean, his most productive games were with Dalton at quarterback, so I like him. I like him this week. And then as for Auden Tate, Alex Erickson, I'd sit. There's just too much. They're sharing too much of the targets, so I don't like it. And then let's talk about a boy that was my start of the week last week. I got Ryan Griffin. He's a start, man. He just got an extension. They just paid that boy money. And in the last 5 games, and this is right before, Darnold, or this is right after Darnold started seeing ghosts, because I guess he started seeing Ryan Griffin. This man has 19 receptions for 236 yards, but 4 touchdowns, and that's in the last 5 games. He's a solid start. Tyler Eifert, he's not startable. Let's go to the next game. We got Tennessee versus Indianapolis. Let's start with my start of the week. That's right.
Bro.
Oh, I love that. We got bro start of the week is Ryan Tannehill. The former Dolphin quarterback. Fins up, baby. Tough matchup, okay? Indy, they're 6th against opposing quarterbacks, but Ryan Tannehill's been on a tear. You don't care what your defense looks like. He has scored over 20 points since becoming the starter every game. He scored 20 points at least 20 points every game since becoming the starter. And Indy just gave up 23 points last week to Deshaun Watson. I like Tannehill in this matchup. Jacoby Brissett, not so much. He's in that Carson Wentz status. He's a middling fantasy quarterback. And it's a so-so matchup against that Tennessee defense. At running back, I'm liking both the running backs for each team. Derrick Henry, he's always a must-start, even in a tough matchup, and this will be a tough matchup as the Colts are 6th against opposing running backs. Jonathan Williams, this is a good matchup for him. The Titans are 21st against opposing running backs. Marlon Mack is still out. Indy loves to run the ball, and they love to give it to Jonathan Williams. Going to receivers, I got AJ Brown as a flex start only. I still don't trust the Titans receiving core, or at least how they distribute the ball, because it goes everywhere. But AJ Brown seems to have the biggest play, or the big play upside. So if you really need a flex this week, you go with Brown. And then I don't know if T.Y. Hilton plays this week. It's sounding like he might, but he's the only reliable weapon for the Colts, and he would even be a flex start after last week. You could tell he was still being bothered by injuries. So yeah, I would if he is out, let's go to tight ends real quick. I love Jack Doyle. He should be my bro star of the week, but he ain't. I reserved it for someone else. I didn't want 2 in one game. But if T.Y. Hilton's out, Jack Doyle should see some work. Eric Ebron is on IR now, so he's getting all them tight end catches. So I like him in a really good matchup. The Tennessee Titans are 22nd against opposing tight ends. And then, oh man, Delaney Walker, he's a sit. Even if he's healthy, which he might not be, it's too risky to play. There's too many questions as far as the volume share. We've seen that with Jonas Smith recently, as they just distribute the ball out to too many guys, and yeah, I don't like it. Packers versus the Giants. Rodgers, good matchup. I know it's hard to trust him after that pooper he put out last week, but it's a good matchup. So I would say feel free to start Aaron Rodgers. As far as Daniel Jones, no thank you. At running backs, you got Aaron Jones. I expect a rebound, a bounce back game. The Giants are 22nd against opposing running backs, so it's a good matchup. Jamal Williams, he gets enough work in the passing game for him to be startable as well. And then Saquon Barkley, you have to start him. He's your first round pick. At receiver, Devontae Adams is the only guy I trust, even in this wonderful matchup, because the Giants are 31st against opposing receivers. I'm not going to try to guess who might get the wide receiver 2 targets. I would just start Devontae Adams. And then Tate might be out this week. Golden Tate would be a start for me because he's been reliable. Jones likes to target him a lot. But if he is out, That gives Sterling Shepard a big bump. That makes Shepard startable. Darius Slayton, in tough matchups, he don't produce. So it's a tough matchup. You don't start him. At a tight end, Jimmy Graham is a sit. He is a non-factor. Evan Ingram is a start if healthy for the Packers are 30th against opposing tight ends. But if he does not, you can't. It's too hard to predict who steps up if Ingram is out. Is it Ellison? Is it Smith? I don't know. I don't want to guess. The playoffs are on the line. Cleveland versus Pittsburgh. Both quarterbacks are a sit for me. Baker Mayfield, I know he's been hot, but I don't want to go near this matchup. Pittsburgh is 11th against opposing quarterbacks. And, I mean, shoot, this is a blood game, technically. And then we got Delvin Hodges. We know what we get with Delvin Hodges. They're going to be... Or is it? It's Devlin, excuse me. They're extremely safe with the ball. If anything, tight ends, running backs kind of get the bump. They're not gonna really take too many deep shots. So I don't like it. There's better upside plays. And then at running back, I got Nick Chubb. He's always a start. But let's talk about Kareem Hunt, because I think he's a start too. He's seen 10 or more touches since being active. He's got that big pass catching upside. I like him in this matchup. And James Conner is a start if available. If he is healthy, he is a start. If not, Benny Snell Jr. gets a huge, not necessarily that huge. It's a pretty tough matchup. Their Browns are 12th against opposing running backs. But he's going to be seeing a lot of volume like we saw last week. And despite, like I'm saying, he's a start. But despite him getting a lot of volume, I still like Jalen Samuels as a flex option in this matchup, especially with Hodges at quarterback, because I think he's going to be targeting the running back and the tight ends a lot. And that Jalen Samuels gives you the big pass catching upside, especially with Connor out. On the receiver, OBJ, you're a flex, homie. You're a flex. I mean, let's just look at it. As of like, I'm trying to. I think the last 6 games, right? Or last 5 games, excuse me. This is what the target shares looked between OBJ and Landry. Landry's had 53 targets. Odell's 43. He's just a flex. But I like Landry in this game. Tough matchup. Steelers are 13th against opposing receivers. But Landry will match up against Mike Hilton. Hilton has been vulnerable against better slot receivers. And guess what? My boy Jarvis Landry is one of them better slot receivers. As far as the receivers for the Steelers, Juju likely to be out. He wouldn't be a start anyway. And neither is Washington or Deontay Johnson, just because Hodges is at quarterback. You just can't do it. And then tight end, Vance McDonald kind of gets a bump. You may see an uptick, but I don't want to rely on Devlin Hodges. That's literally the focal point of this part of the video. I'm not going to rely on a third string quarterback. So sorry, Vance, you're a sit. David Njoku, wait and see. He might be good to go, but I still won't start him. I'd leave him on the bench even in a good matchup. And I'd like to see production with my eyes, since it might be his first game back since injury. But yeah, really no tight end starts in this game. Washington versus Carolina. Haskins, he ain't a start. He's a rookie against a Panther defense that's 14th against opposing quarterbacks. I don't like it. Kyle Allen is a low end start. The Redskins are 17th, but I don't know. I think there's better options out there. As far as running back, my boy Guys, I think he's back. He's a flex start in a great matchup. The Panthers 28th against opposing running backs, and he's not a bad shot in a very run-heavy offense. As far as Adrian Peterson, I think he's going to start to get phased out. This is just my opinion, though. I think he's going to start to get phased out in favor of Guys, so he's a sit. McCaffrey's always a start. Let's not talk about it. You know it. At receiver, I got Scary Terry himself, Terry McLaurin. He's a flex start. He saw 12 targets last week, and they'll probably be playing from behind, so they might be passing a little bit more. And the Panthers 24th against opposing receivers, but he'd be the only guy for the Redskins I'd touch. And then DJ Moore, he's a start. He hasn't seen fewer than 8 targets since week 4. He's getting plenty of opportunity. I like him there. Curtis Samuel, in deeper leagues, I think he's a flex start. He's a sit for me, though. He gets high volume, but he sees a lot of low-quality targets. That Danny Amendola syndrome. As far as the tight ends, Greg Olson's always reliable in a very unreliable tight end landscapes go. So go with Greg Olson. Sprinkle, he's irrelevant in the Washington offense, so he's a sit. Tampa Bay versus Jacksonville. Jameis Winston, he's a start. It's an ugly start. You don't want to, but you know he's gonna get points. Go for it. Nick Foles, low end start, great matchup. Bucks, the 31st against opposing tight end or a quarterback, so he's got the matchup in his favor. As far as running backs, let's talk about Ronald Jones and then Peyton Barber. Peyton Barber, he's always a sit. Ronald Jones, he's a flex at best. There's better options, and he's a better option. He's seeing split carries with Barber, but he is the better option in that backfield. But he's a flex only. As far as Leonard Fournette, even in a tough matchup, because the Bucks are sacking against opposing running backs out of nowhere. I mean, it feels like out of nowhere. I didn't know he could catch. I didn't know he was a pass catcher. But this year, he's been getting a lot of work in the pass game, so that still makes him viable. And then, let's talk receiver. You know you're starting Mike Evans. You know you're starting Chris Godwin forever and always. And then in my bro start of the week.
Bro.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. DJ Chark, he's my start of the week. I mean, come on. Tampa Bay, they're 32nd against opposing receivers. So, yeah, it's a great matchup for him. But honestly, D.D. Westbrook and Chris Conley, I think they're viable. You can put them in the slot and feel good about it, because that's how bad the defense or the secondary has played for Tampa Bay. As far as tight ends, there's really nothing to talk about. What, you gonna start OJ Howard? You're gonna start Cameron Brate? No, you're not. And there's no one to talk about from Jacksonville. So San Fran, Baltimore. What a game this has the ability to be. This is gonna be awesome. At quarterback, you can't sit Lamar Jackson. You just can't. I don't know why you would. Maybe if it was bye week, but guess what? No more bye weeks. Bye-bye bye weeks. Jimmy Garoppolo, though, he's hard to sit because he's been pretty decent. But this is a tough Baltimore defense. They're producing a lot of turnovers recently. I wouldn't go there. As far as running backs, Tevin Coleman, he's a flex start at best. It's a tough matchup. And if Matt Breida is healthy and if he's good to go, I think he's a flex start too at best. That doesn't go likewise for Raheem Mostert or Jeff Wilson. I think those guys are sits. Mark Ingram, I don't mind the tough matchup with Mark Ingram because I know they're going to try to I know they're going to run the ball. They might not be as successful as they are normally because it's a really tough matchup, but they're going to run. I know he's going to get a lot of opportunity. At receiver, I would sit both Emmanuel Sanders and Deebo Samuel. I mean, it's just too much of a gamble this week, and you can't be gambling this week, you know? It's your playoff spots on the line. You can't be gambling. As far as Hollywood Brown, man, he's a sit. He isn't getting too much volume, and it's not worth the risk, especially against a tough secondary like the 49ers. But at tight end, it's George Kittle. You got to start him even in a tough matchup. And then Mark Andrews. The 49ers, they're first against opposing tight ends, but I think you still got to start him. I mean, who else are you willing to start at tight end that might be on the waiver wire, you know? So, yeah, I think he's a start, but if you happen to have a better option on your roster now, then go with that. Rams versus the Cardinals. Low-end start, but Jared Goff is a start. He performs well against bad teams. I know he's kind of bad on the road, though. Like I said, low-end start, but Arizona, they're 32nd against opposing tight ends. Not the sexiest option, but he is an option. Kyler Murray, though, he's been good. He hasn't scored. He's only scored under 20 points twice this season. One was an easy win where they utilized the run game a lot, against the Giants. That's where Chase Edmonds had his big game. The other was a blowout against the Ravens. So I like him even in it's not a terrible matchup. The Rams are 15th. And then running back Gurley, he remains a flex option only, even in a very good matchup. I mean, I know y'all were disappointed with Monday night, but luckily they face a much, let's call a spade a spade. Cardinals are a much easier defense to face than the Rams. I'm just saying, the Ravens are a much more intimidating bird than the Cardinals. As for the Cardinals running back, I think the only guy you could really start here is Kenyon Drake. He's a flex. I don't know how DJ will play into this. I don't know how they're going to get Johnson involved. So I would play Kenyon Drake as a flex option only. If you have better options, then go with those. And DJ Johnson, he's a sit. Just because the reasons I listed off, but it looks like Kenyon Drake, he's the hot hand, he's the hot back. I think he'll see more work than Johnson. At receiver, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, and yes, Brandon Cooks. They're all starts as flex. I think Kupp obviously has a little more upside than the other two, but they're all startable in a very good matchup. Christian Kirk is a flex start only. The Rams are 16th against opposing wide receivers, so he has a little viability there. Larry Fitzgerald, I wouldn't feel comfortable about starting this week though. And then at tight end, Arizona tight ends, we don't talk about Arizona tight ends on this channel. And then my start of the week is Gerald Everett, if healthy. Because if not, feel free to pivot to Tyler Higbee, because Arizona don't cover tight ends. Whatever tight end they're facing that week is a must start. So if you have Gerald Everett, you're going with Everett. Make sure he's healthy. If not, Tyler Higbee is not a terrible option. And we're going to the Chargers versus the Broncos. Phillip Rivers, man, I don't feel good. There's no trust between me and Phillip Rivers. He cost me a game that probably knocked me out of the playoffs. I don't know. We'll see this week. I need a win and then some. I need some help. So, yeah, he 4 interceptions, man. I don't think I could let go of that. 4 interceptions. But yeah, there's just no trust. It's a tough matchup. The Broncos are 4th against opposing quarterbacks, so I don't like it. Whoever starts for the Broncos this week is a sit. It might be Drew Lock. It sounds like he's getting a lot more first team reps in practice this week. But whether it's him or Allen, they're both sits. At running back, Melvin Gordon, I think Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler, you got to start these guys. They are the offense at this point. Phillip Lindsay, he's a good start. Looking at the Chargers, they're 24th against opposing running backs, so I think he's a good start. Royce Freeman, not so much. He's been losing carries for the past month to Phillip Lindsay. Lindsay, I think, is now averaging double the workload that Royce Freeman is, so I don't like him. And then at receiver, Keenan Allen, you have to start him. He gets a lot of volume. Even in a tough matchup, he gets a ton of volume. Mike Williams, though, I don't feel good about him. Sit him. Cortland Sutton, man, he's just going to get hurt by the rookie play. I think he's a sit. As far as the Chargers have no one at tight end. No one. Hunter Henry is out. He bruised his ribs, and I think he punctured a lung this week or Tuesday in practice. So get well soon, Hunter. But yeah, no one to start for the Chargers. Noah Fant for tight end. He's a low-end start. It's a tough matchup, man. It's a toughie. The Broncos are 9th. Alexander Johnson's been doing a fine job in covering linebackers. And honestly, rookies, they kind of give Fant a bit of opportunity just because rookies typically lean on tight ends, running backs. They lean on that short yardage, high percentage passes. So he's a low-end start. It's a bit risky, but he's low-end start. And then Raiders versus Kansas City. We got David Carr, played like Derek Carr last week. David Carr. Wow, I'm all mixed up, man. What are words? You're gonna start Derek Carr. I look for a rebound this week. Chiefs, I think they're gonna be competitive against the Chiefs. I don't necessarily think they're gonna win, but it's a good matchup. Patrick Mahomes, he's obviously a start. And at running back is my bro star of the week at the running back position. It's Josh Jacobs. The Chiefs are 32nd against opposing running backs. And even with Chris Jones, at least with him returning, they haven't really improved at stopping running backs. Damian Williams, check his status. He's a flex start if healthy. And then if he's not, then I think that makes Shady and Darrell Williams viable. I think that makes them flexible. I think they're flexible if Damian Williams is out. At receiver, I think it's fine to start Tyrell Williams even in this matchup. Hunter Renfrow, he's out. He's gone. I think he might be out for the rest of the year. I'm not positive. Don't quote me on that one. But he is out, so I think he's a fine start this week. Tyreek Hill's obviously a start. Sammy Watkins, he's a flex start simply because he plays with Patrick Mahomes. I know Sammy Watkins isn't reliable. He really hasn't popped off since week 1, but that's why I say he is flexible. At tight end, Darren Waller, actually, I think he will benefit from Hunter Renfrow being out. When Hunter Renfrow started seeing more and more targets, that's when Waller's big time plays, his big games started going down. So with Hunter Renfrow out, Waller is Derek Carr's only short option. And we know how much Derek Carr loves to throw the ball 10 yards or less. Just saying. And then Travis Kelce's obviously a start. New England versus Houston. Brady's a low-end start. The offense, it's a great matchup. Houston, they're 28th. But we've seen the offense struggle recently, so err on the side of caution, and I would look for someone else. But it's a good matchup, so it's a low-end start if you have to. I would say Deshaun Watson's a sit, dude. I mean, the Patriots, they're first against opposing quarterbacks. I mean, if you really want to, I know you probably spent an early pick on them, but if this game don't matter for you, start Deshaun Watson. If it does, I would look for someone with a better matchup. At running back, I think Sony Michel's a start. I think he's been reaping the rewards of this past game struggling, and I think that might continue. I think he's an RB2, maybe a flex at best, but it's a good matchup. The Texans are 20th against opposing running backs, so it's a good start. James White, just because of that pass catching ability, I know didn't really mean much last week, but he does have that upside. Carlos Hyde, Duke Johnson, it's tough seeing either of those guys being too involved in this game. Patriots are first against opposing running backs, so I don't like either option. As far as the receivers, there's 2 receivers I trust in this game. One is DeAndre Hopkins, and it's an incredibly tough matchup, but he's the only guy I'm willing to trust. And then the other is Julian Edelman, who's really the only option Brady trusts, really. So, yeah, those are the only guys I'd go with. And then at tight end, there's no one to talk about for the Patriots. There's no one start worthy. And then Darren Fells, Jordan Atkins, not a chance. I don't want to start either of those guys. So that's it for the Sunday night game and for the Monday night game. Minnesota versus Seattle. This is a big game. It's a big game. And I expect some big performances. Kirk Cousins, he's played great. I'm scared. Kirk Cousins scares me, but he is a start. Seattle 21st against opposing quarterbacks. So it's a good matchup. Kirk Cousins has the best quarterback rating in the fourth quarter of any quarterback this season. I know it's quarterback rating, but that might not mean much, but he's played very well, so he's a start. Russell Wilson is a start as well. He's been money. He's been kind of wonky the last couple of games, but it's Russell Wilson. It's a big game. I don't mind trusting Russell Wilson. Dalvin Cook at running back. You always start Dalvin Cook. And, Chris Carson. Honest opinion, I'm not comfortable starting Chris Carson this week. He's had the fumbling problems, and last week, I know Rashad Penny popped off. I think they just really went with the hot hand. It didn't seem to me that they were benching him. So I think he should go back to his usual output, but it's a tough matchup. Vikings are 5th. And just knowing that Rashad Penny at any moment could just come in and take those snaps away from Chris Carson. It scares me. I would steer clear of Chris Carson this week, and that might be a big mistake, but I don't know. I don't feel good starting him. And Rashad Penny, yeah, dude, don't start him. And at receiver, let's start with the good. Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf. There's huge upside. Those Minnesota corners, they're not good. And Minnesota's 29th against opposing receivers, so Lockett and Metcalf should benefit from that. Thielen might be back this week. I don't feel good about starting him, but it's Adam Thielen. And with Stephon Diggs, honestly, it's start him, just pray he does well. So, pray to the fantasy gods that Stephon Diggs plays good. And if Thielen is back, that just hurts his chances even more. So I don't even want to think about it. I'll leave that up to you. I wouldn't do it. But no Thielen, then I'd say start and pray. At tight end, Kyle Rudolph is a start. He has that touchdown upside. He is, especially if Thielen is still out, it's a great matchup. Seattle 29th against opposing tight ends. Irv Smith Jr. doesn't have the touchdown upside, and he's not seeing as many targets as Kyle Rudolph. And Jacob Hollister for Seattle. So Minnesota, they're 18th against opposing tight ends, so they're about in the middle. I think he's a start this week. It's a bit risky, but he's probably better than most of your streaming options. There, I said it. But that's it for the video. Go ahead, do the YouTube thing, and if you got any questions, ask me below. I'll be more than I had a brain fart there. I'll be more than happy to answer them. Oh my gosh. What happens when you do a video for 40 minutes? You just, words come out and you start a sentence and you don't necessarily finish it. But until next time, you be me. You be easy, my friends. Later.